Under Zambia's public procurement rules, government contracts must be transparent, accountable, and properly supervised. But in Chonga Ward, a public-funded project was abruptly terminated with little public explanation. Who owns the company that was hired, and what does this mean for the community left behind? This report examines the unanswered questions. Here is Bibian Nkandela to take you through the journey of Science Lab at Chonga Secondary School in Kalomo District. I am KB Shanjame for Voice of Kalomo Community Radio Station 89.9 FM.
The Chonga Secondary School Science Laboratory project received over 300,000 kwacha under the 2024 Constituency Development Fund (CDF) in February 2025, meant for plumbing works, laboratory sinks, tables, and other fittings. A contract was signed between the local council and Wombafia Investment Limited, with works expected to be completed within a few months. But today, the structure tells a different story. Unfinished tables, low pipes, and no equipment, forcing teachers explaining the theory of chemicals to the learners.
Our wish is to see the school laboratory being completed, as this will enable us to perform practical lessons from there. But currently, we are just being told that the laboratory is still being constructed.
We were told that the lab will help us,
especially examination classes, but it has taken long. We are losing, especially us doing biology and those doing physics and chemistry.
A search of company records at the Patents and Companies Registration Agents, PACRA, shows that the contractor Wombafia Investment Limited was only incorporated on 2nd November 2024, just a few months before the Chonga Laboratory project was funded. The company lists two shareholders, Harry Mwasika and Jackson Hara, with a nominal share capital of 20,000 kwacha. The PACRA records also indicate the firm's registered business activity as retail trade rather than construction. These details raise further questions about how the contractor was selected for a public infrastructure project worth over 300,000 kwacha under the Constituency Development Fund. The records raise an important question: what due diligence was carried out before awarding a public infrastructure contract to a company registered only months earlier? For examination classes, the delays mean lost learning time and fewer chances to compete academically. The school head teacher is Mr. Belden Hamuyuve.
There could be so many reasons that made it not to be successful. One of them is the lack of monitoring, no close monitoring of the project. Then also the contractor himself, the actual contractor, we never saw him here. Maybe only the workers were seen around. So I'm sure that could have contributed to poor workmanship that we have seen inside here.
Mr. Hamuyove wants the project to be completed as soon as possible.
I appeal to the government that this project should actually be completed as soon as possible, because as a secondary school, full-fledged secondary school right now, we needed this lab very, very quickly, because the CBC, the new curriculum that has been put in place right now, requires that children should be using the lab every now and then, hands-on. Because without this lab, it means that the children will be half-baked.
Kalomo Town Council Director of Works, Mr. Abuya Siagwelele, indicated that those reports eventually led to the termination of the contract.
There are certain clauses that are put in the contract. If the contractor is not on site for a prolonged period of time, that constitutes a breach of contract. And such, among others, there are many other breaches that are stipulated in the conditions of contract. So in particular, absence from site by a contractor for a prolonged time is a breach that may lead to the termination.
According to two parents, Ms. Dorcas Mudenda and Ms. Gertrude Walenda, in that order, the delay to complete the project have had consequences.
That's the time to buy GM kujira mugata bobaka yaga hide kuburu ga niyo bagari kupanga.
Construction of the laboratories started a long time, yet there is no progress observed. During the last annual general meeting we had, during the tour we observed that the concrete tables are of poor quality. This has negatively affected the pupils as there is an increase in the enrollment, and without a functional laboratory, they will not learn effectively. So, we want the local authorities to make follow-ups with the contractor if at all he was paid. All I can say about the school laboratory is that it should be completed to enable the pupils learn to the fullest in a conducive environment, but for now, nothing much has happened.
The two parents want answers for this delay. According to council officials interviewed, part of the 300,000 kwacha allocation had already been released before the contract was terminated. But authorities did not disclose how much money was paid, how much work was completed, or whether any funds have been recovered. Voice of Kalomo community radio station requested this information, but detailed figures were not provided by the time of broadcast. Without that information, it is difficult for the public to know whether taxpayers' money was properly protected. Company representative Davis Wembia showed ignorance about the termination of the contract.
Okay, so we are applying for variation. So I cannot say for now when it is ending because that we want to do something with the institution regarding variation.
Mr. Wembia disclosed that the company was paid but did not say how much.
No, the funds that were given were there, which we call it the advance payment. We mean the advance payment that allows it to start the work. So that advance payment, once it is given, that's what enables you to begin to do the work. So that's the money that we began using to do the work up to the level where it is.
Lessons have been learned, but the building remains incomplete, raising questions about the management of the Constituents Development Fund and how contractors are selected. For the Chonga community, assurances that processes are underway come after months of waiting. However, Kalomo Town Council Director of Works, Mr. Siagwenele, says the works will be completed soon.
The science lab at Chonga, it's going to resume. The works will resume in a space of 2 to 3 weeks. Once the procurement process just concludes, a contractor is coming on board to ensure that the correct standard, and as a department we are going to ensure that nothing but the right standard is done so that the pupils there can enjoy a very good learning environment. They really need the science laboratory before they start any of their practical works. So once the project resumes, we are giving it a time frame of 2 months that it should be completed, because where it is, the works that are remaining are works that can be completed under a space of 2 months.
This report highlights a repeated challenge in CDF-funded projects where good intentions are undermined by weak contract enforcement, delayed corrective action, and limited public disclosure. While the termination of the contract suggests oversight mechanisms exist, delayed completion has already cost learners valuable education time. I am Bibian Kandela, and this report was produced by KB Sianjame for Voice of Kalomo Community Radio Station 89.9 FM. Until next time, goodbye from all of us.